Let me ask you this, my friend. What if the delay you are facing is not a denial, but divine preparation? What if the struggle you are walking through is not punishment, but positioning? I once met a man in Texas who looked completely defeated. His hands were callous from years of labor, but now they were idle. He had applied for dozens of jobs. Each one turned him away. His savings gone, his confidence cracked, and worst of all, his prayers seemed to echo into silence. He asked me, "Reverend, why would God allow this if He loves me?" I looked into his weary eyes and said, "God sometimes hides His hand, not because He has forgotten you, but because He is forming something deeper within you." I told him, "You are not being buried. You are being planted. And when a seed is planted, it goes through darkness before it breaks into light. If your life today feels like that seed, buried under weight and pressure, let me encourage you. You are not forgotten. God is not through with you. You may think nothing is happening, but under the surface, roots are growing. Strength is being forged in silence. Faith is being shaped where no one else can see. You may walk past people every day who smile on the outside, but they too are fighting silent battle. There are mothers crying in silence after their children go to sleep. There are young men wrestling with loneliness behind strong faces. There are business owners staring at failure and wondering, is this the end? But hear this. When you belong to Christ, no season is wasted. No pain is ignored. God uses what the world throws away. He builds with broken pieces. And sometimes, He delays the breakthrough not to punish you, but to prepare you. Think of Joseph. One day he was thrown in a pit. The next he was sold as a slave. Later he was left in prison, forgotten by men, but not by God. And at the right time, God lifted him into a place he could never reach on his own. If Joseph had not been prepared in pain, he could not have stood in purpose. Friend, if the door has not opened yet, maybe God is strengthening the frame. If the dream feels far, maybe God is enlarging your heart to carry it. Do not measure God's goodness by how fast your prayers are answered. Measure it by how near He draws to you when you cry out. And I promise you this, if you hold on in the dark, God will bring you into His light because He is never late. And He is always good. Can I ask you something personal today? When everything else is stripped away, when the noise fades and the distractions vanish, what is left between you and God? Not your titles, not your talent, not your followers or your finances, just you and Him. Have you ever been in that place, the place where it feels like God is all you have, and then you realize He is all you ever needed? I have seen men with great power fall apart when their kingdoms crumble, but I have also seen humble souls who lost everything and yet stood taller than giants because they had something no one could take, the presence of God. You see, trials do not come to destroy you. They come to reveal you. When you walk through the fire, the question is not whether the flames will come. The question is, will your faith come alive in the heat? I once spoke with a woman who had been through years of loss. Her husband gone, her health declining, her dreams fading. She looked me in the eye and said, "Pastor, I should be bitter, but I am not. I have found something sweeter than comfort. I have found peace in the middle of pain. That kind of peace does not come from easy days. It comes from broken nights when you hold on to God because nothing else makes sense." It comes from wilderness seasons when you have no map, but trust the one who leads. The Israelites did not see the promised land the day they left Egypt. They walked through desert and drought, but the desert was not a punishment. It was a process. God used it to take Egypt out of their hearts before He led them into freedom. Maybe that is what He is doing with you. Maybe the wilderness you are walking through is not rejection. It is refinement. He is not just leading you to a place. He is shaping you into the person who can stand in that place. And I want to ask you now, from one heart to another, are you willing to let go of control and trust the process? Are you ready to say, Lord, even if I do not understand, I will still follow you? If that is your heart today, I invite you to comment these words right now. I am ready. Or simply write the number 1. That small act is not for me, but it tells heaven something. It says, Lord, I may not feel strong, but I am available. And friend, let me tell you something. Your willingness is a gift to God. And to me, as someone who speaks these words from a heart that longs to see lives changed, it is precious beyond measure. I may not see your face, but I sense your spirit. And that means I am not speaking into silence. You are here, and I thank you. Now, let us keep walking this journey together. There is a stirring that begins, not in your circumstances, but in your spirit, a holy discomfort. You cannot explain it, but you feel it. What once satisfied no longer does. The things you used to chase now feel shallow. The places that gave you comfort now feel too small. That is not confusion. That is God calling you deeper. It is not restlessness. It is redirection. There is a moment when the Spirit of God begins to unsettle what you have settled for. It is not to punish you, it is to prepare you. When God wants to shift your life, He will first shift your desire. He will allow a holy tension to rise within you, a longing that cannot be filled by entertainment, applause, or routine. You may feel like something is off, and you are right. Something is. God is moving, and when God moves, He does not always start outside of you. He begins within you. That is why you can be surrounded by success, but still feel empty. You can achieve your goals, yet your soul still cries for something more. That cry is not weakness. It is awakening. God is awakening you to something bigger than comfort, bigger than normal, bigger than safe. He is loosening your grip on lesser things, so your hands are free to receive what is eternal. And that shift rarely feels easy. It often feels like loss. But what if it is not loss? What if it is transition? What if it is God removing the scaffolding so you can see the structure He is building inside you? You cannot carry old mindsets into new seasons. You cannot step into calling while clinging to convenience. So when your spirit begins to feel unsettled, do not panic. Pay attention. The Spirit is not trying to distance you from joy. He is pulling you toward purpose. And sometimes the first sign of that purpose is not clarity, it is hunger, a deep, quiet hunger that says, Lord, there must be more. That hunger is not your enemy. It is your compass. It leads you away from what is safe into what is sacred. And if you will lean into that stirring instead of running from it, you will find yourself not drifting, but being drawn to the feet of Jesus, drawn into surrender, drawn out of shallow living into something real, something lasting, something only God can do. So if your heart is aching today, not with fear, but with a yearning you cannot name, do not silence it. That is the voice of your Creator saying, I am not done with you. I have more for you. And it begins when you stop running from the restlessness and start listening to it, because that restlessness just might be the beginning of your revival. Let me ask you something that may sound simple but carries a weight. Many people are afraid to answer. Have you ever faced a closed door and wondered if it meant you were not good enough, not spiritual enough, or simply forgotten by God? I have spoken with men and women across this world who whispered the same question in different ways. Why would God let this door close after I prayed? Why would He let me come this far only to stop me here? A young man once came to me with tears in his eyes and said, Pastor, I did everything right. I prayed. I worked hard. I believed, but the opportunity still collapsed. I looked at him and said, sometimes the clearest sign that God is protecting you is not the door He opens, but the one He closes. Because not every open door is from heaven, and not every closed door is from hell. You see, when we measure progress by visible result, we forget that God sees beyond the surface. He sees motives. He sees timing. He sees what we cannot. Some of the greatest gifts God gives us are the opportunities He never lets reach us, because He knows what they would do to our soul. That relationship you cried over, that job that rejected you, that plan that fell apart. What if God was not keeping something from you, but keeping something for you? And the longer you walk with the Lord, the more you realize that a closed door is not always rejection. Sometimes it is redirection. Joseph faced closed door. His brothers sold him. Potiphar's wife accused him. The prison door shut behind him. And yet, those same closed doors placed him in the very position God had prepared for him. What felt like setbacks were really setups. And maybe that is what God is doing in your life too. So I ask you, not out of curiosity, but out of compassion, are you willing to trust God even when the answer is no, even when the door stays shut? Because faith is not proven when things open easily. It is proven when nothing moves and you still believe. And if you are hearing this and it resonates with your heart, let me know you are here. Comment, I'm still trusting. Or just type the number 1. Not for attention. Not for me. But because I want to know you are listening. Because when you speak it out, something changes inside. It becomes real. You are not just watching, you are participating. And I want you to know your faith matters. Your presence matters. Even in silence, you are seen. And if a door is closed right now, lift your eyes. The author of your story is not finished yet. And what He opens, no one can shut. Some people think that when opposition shows up, it means they are doing something wrong. But I want to tell you, the opposite might be true. The enemy does not attack what does not threaten him. When you start walking in the direction God calls you, resistance will come. That is not a sign to retreat. That is a sign you are advancing. Nehemiah set out to rebuild the wall of Jerusalem. He had a clear mission, a clear call, and still he faced mockery, threats, and constant distraction. Why? Because the enemy feared what would happen if that wall stood again. The attacks were not random. They were targeted. And that is how the enemy works. He waits until your hands begin to build before he tries to break your focus. But listen to me now. Just because the path is hard does not mean God is not in it. Sometimes the path is hard because He is in it. Because anything God builds will be opposed by darkness. And the louder the noise around you, the greater the breakthrough ahead of you. Some of you are walking through opposition right now. Not because you are doing something wrong, but because you are finally doing something right. The tension you feel is spiritual. The confusion, the weariness, the sudden pushback from people you thought would support you, these are not coincidences. These are signs that the work matters, and the enemy wants to stop it before it matures. When the crowd turned on Jesus, He did not change the mission. He fixed His eyes on the cross. And when Paul was thrown into prison, he did not fall into despair. He sang, because the presence of God does not disappear when the pressure increases. In fact, sometimes His presence is most powerful in the pressure. That is where strength is forged. That is where faith becomes unshakable. You may feel alone in the fight, but you are not abandoned. You may feel outnumbered, but heaven stands with you. And you do not have to shout to be victorious. You only need to stand. Because when you stand in obedience, God does the fighting. When you keep building, even with tears in your eyes, that is when heaven leans in. The opposition is real, but the anointing is greater. Do not step back. Do not apologize for the calling God placed in you. If the enemy is loud, it is because your breakthrough is close. And if the fire is hot, it is because the gold in you is starting to shine. Stand firm. Keep building. Keep believing. Because what God starts, He finishes. And what He anoints, He protects. There is a moment in every journey of faith when God stops giving signs and starts waiting for steps. We often pray for direction, but what we really want is assurance. We want God to show us the whole path before we take the first step. But that is not how faith works. Faith begins when visibility ends. I think of Abraham. God did not hand him a map. He gave him a word. Go to the land I will show you. And Abraham went. That was not logic. That was trust. Peter saw Jesus walking on water and said, Lord, if it is you, call me. And Jesus said one word, come. Not a plan, not a strategy, just come. Peter stepped out of the boat, not because he understood the water, but because he trusted the one who stood on it. And that is the call for us today. Not to wait for full understanding, but to move when God speaks. I have talked with people who say they are waiting for confirmation, but friend, some things do not need another confirmation. They need obedience. You will not see the sea part until your feet touch the water. You will not see the manna fall until you leave Egypt. You will not see the breakthrough until you walk in the direction of the promise. God moves with those who move in faith. It does not mean you will not feel fear, but courage is not the absence of fear. It is obedience in the presence of it. Do not wait until you feel ready. You may never feel ready, but the miracle is waiting on the other side of your movement. Every giant that fell in Scripture fell because someone stepped forward. Not backward, not sideways, forward. And today, God is not asking for your perfection. He is asking for your participation. He wants to see if you will move with what you have, where you are, believing that He is enough because He does not need your perfect plan. He needs your surrendered heart. So if you are standing at the edge of something and the next step scares you, let me tell you this. The water will hold you. The fire will not consume you. The mountain will move not because of your strength, but because of your faith. The God who calls you out is the same God who carries you through, and He is waiting not to show you everything, but to see if you will trust Him with anything. Take the step, because the path will appear as you walk it, and the presence of God will meet you in motion. Can I ask you something today? Not as a preacher, but as someone who has walked through the fire and seen the faithfulness of God? Have you ever prayed for something big, and when it did not come, you started to question not just the prayer, but yourself? I once spoke with a man who said, "Reverend, I asked God for something great, but all I received was more waiting, more silence, more testing." And I told him gently, "My friend, sometimes God delays the gift because He is still preparing the vessel. You see, we often pray, 'Lord, use me for something great,' but we forget that greatness does not begin with spotlight. It begins with surrender. God will not pour new wine into old wineskins, and He will not place a heavy mantle on a heart that is not yet rooted. Many people want promotion, but they resist preparation. They want impact, but not the internal change that sustains it. God is not only preparing what He will give to you, He is preparing who He will give it through. Because a gift in the wrong hands can become a burden, but in surrendered hands, it becomes a blessing. Think of David. Before he wore the crown, he carried cheese to his brothers. Before he held a sword against Goliath, he held a harp in hidden places. God trained his hands for battle in obscurity. No crowd, no applause, just faithfulness. Maybe that is where you are right now. In the hidden place, the place of obedience with no recognition, the place where you serve without titles, where you give when no one sees, where you cry out to God and only silence replies. But let me tell you something. Heaven hears. And the deeper God digs, the taller you will rise. He is not ignoring you. He is investing in you. The delay is not denial. It is design. He is shaping your character to carry the calling, because the door He opens will not be one you can fake your way through. It will require depth, and that depth is being formed in this season. So do not waste it. Embrace it. Ask God not only for the blessing, but for the heart to sustain it. And if what I am saying speaks to you, I want to know you are still here with me. Let me know by commenting, "I am still becoming," or even just the number 1. That one act tells me something powerful. It tells me that the fire has not broken you, it is refining you. And I want you to know that even if I cannot see your face, your response matters, not for numbers or views, but for connection. Because this is not just a video, it is a holy moment, a space where the Spirit of God is working through words, reaching across the screen into your life. And your presence here, your willingness to say yes, even in the process, means more than you know. So if you are still walking through the shaping season, take heart. God is not finished. He is still writing your story. And the next chapter requires exactly who you are becoming right now. Are you tired of waiting for something that never seems to come? Tired of praying and hearing nothing back? Wondering if God still sees you, still hears you, still cares? I want to tell you something right now. Not from a book, not from theory, but from the deep places where I have wrestled with God myself. Yes, He sees. Yes. He hears. Yes. He is still at work. But the way he moves is often nothing like what we imagined. We expect sudden answers. But God builds lasting strength. We want doors to open quickly. But he often chooses to deepen our foundation first. I have looked into the eyes of people who lost everything and yet somehow gained something greater. Not because the pain disappeared, but because God showed up in the middle of it. And I have seen those who walked away from faith too early, only to realize they walked out just before the breakthrough came. So let me speak this into your spirit today. If you are still breathing, God is not done. If you are still standing, no matter how weak you feel, you are not defeated. The plan of God over your life has not been canceled. It is unfolding. And what you call delay, he calls preparation. What you call silence, he calls deep work. I believe with all my heart that something is shifting even now. Maybe not outside, but inside you. Maybe God is restoring what no one else could reach. Maybe he is opening your eyes to see that the blessing you prayed for is not just around you. It is already within you. Because the greatest breakthrough is not when things change. It is when you change, and when your spirit rises up again and says, Lord, I still believe. That is when heaven leans close. That is when angels take notice. That is when battles begin to turn. So here is what I want you to do. Not tomorrow, not someday. Now, head back up. Pray again. Dream again. Step forward, even if your legs shake, because you are not alone. God has walked with you in every valley, and he has not brought you this far to leave you where you are. There is more. There is better. There is purpose waiting on the other side of your yes. And I want to walk that journey with you. This message is not the end. It is a beginning. And if this word has stirred something in you, do not let it die in silence. Feed it. Fight for it. Follow it. In the next video, I want to speak to the person who is on the edge of giving up but dares to hope again. We will talk about the exact moment when God turns hidden faith into visible breakthrough. But right now, today, say it with me in your heart. Lord, I trust you even here, even now. And let that be the moment your story begins again.